I'm a growth guy. 20 properties a year is not enough.
Today, I'm super excited to be here with Brian Olson, owner at Beachcomber Vacation Homes, industry veteran, and the president of the Northwest Vacation Rental Professionals Association.
If you're going to scale, you have to have your own laundry facility. That's what we have. Since 2020. We've grown by over 60% in both employees and homes under management.
Let's talk about how you got into this industry. You talk about how you and your wife basically jumped off the cliff with no parachute.
So my wife and I ended up in this industry completely by mistake, accident 18 years ago.
It's good to have this vision of, I'm going to build something where everyone is equal until you try to make it happen. What's been the challenge there? In terms of getting out of the way, I see a lot of operators, owners struggle with letting go. How have you managed to get out of the way?
One of my pet peeves in anything, not just this industry, but in life in general, is...
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hospitality Edge podcast, where we bring together what we think are two sides of the same coin, real estate and hospitality, and where we aim to bring together entrepreneurs, investors, founders, leaders, and operators in the vacation rental and hospitality space so they can tell us about their lessons they have learned along the way, maybe some of the mistakes they might have made along the way as well, and also their stories so we can get inspired by it. Today, I'm super excited to be here with Brian Olson. He's the owner at Beachcomber Vacation Homes. He's an industry veteran. He's been the president of the Northwest Vacation Rental Professionals Association. He's been on the vendor side of things as well, in his previous life, with Point Central. He's been a general manager of an operation as well in this space, and now leads a portfolio of more than 100 vacation rental properties, and also is super involved in the community and in the industry. So super excited to have you on, Brian. Thanks so much for taking the time. We're going to be talking about talent retention. We're going to talk about what it takes to build a unique culture where you ensure that your talent sticks around. They haven't lost a single housekeeper, and that's something that they're very proud of. So we're going to talk about what it takes to build that kind of a culture, what it takes to build also very strong relationships with homeowners and with realtors to grow an operation, and many more things that we'll be talking here about Brian's experience and the lessons he has learned along the way. So Brian, before we get started, would you mind telling us, please, if you were to start all over again, knowing what you know today, you've been doing this, since 2014 and even prior, and you could do anything differently, what, if anything, would you change or do differently knowing what you know today?
I don't know that there's a lot. I think maybe bringing some technology on a little bit faster than we did in the beginning. But other than that, we had been with the company before, so we kind of knew the direction we wanted to go, which really helped us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so nothing that you would do differently. What about something that you would advise yourself on? Like, more today than you knew when you were first starting. So, if you could give yourself your younger self, or the person that was starting this operation, or for that sake, anyone that's starting or trying to scale an operation and build, to the level that you have, what advice do you think you could give, as far as the lessons you've learned there?
I would have built a laundry facility sooner than I built my own. I think that was a big piece of our success and our growth. And I think I would have built it sooner. I would tell my younger self, when you're ready, if you think you're ready, go ahead and build it. Don't wait another year or two.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And can you, because this is, what you mentioned here means, it's an important lesson. So, talk to us about that process. Could it have been done earlier? What would need to be in place for you to have been able to do it earlier? And what can people learn about whether they should or should not venture into doing this, in-house themselves?
I think, I'm in a remote area in Oregon. We don't have a lot of laundry options. So we were doing it in-house in high-end residential machines, which is not very efficient. And if you're going to scale, you have to have your own laundry facility or that ability to do that. And I think that's what we have since 2020. we've grown by over 60% in both employees and homes under management. And that laundry facility has really helped us do that because it doesn't hold us back. It helps our
Hmm.
cleaners be more efficient. All of that, our company is, and I really believe that that's a reason we are so successful today.
Hmm. 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 And then if someone's looking at this and thinking, well, I don't live in a remote market. I have a lot of, laundry options. I do want to scale. I just don't see it as the thing that I should be doing now. What how would you advise someone to go through analyzing whether it makes sense or not for them to do this the way you did it?
I think the one big thing is how much control you want. When you're shipping your linens out to be done by another company, you have very little control. Where if you're doing it yourself, you have all the control. So
Mhm.
you control what the quality is that goes out, what the quality is of the clean, all of those things. And I believe in this industry, because most of us are that A-type personality, most of us want to have control of those things. So I think once you hit the 25, 30, 40 range, depending on how many bedrooms is in that management portfolio, I really think if you can find a spot that's affordable, you should start looking at it.
Mhm. Mhm. Got it. Got it. Now, Brian, let's talk a little bit about how you got into this industry. It's a pretty interesting story. You talk about how you and your wife basically jumped off the cliff with no parachute uh,
Yeah.
when you were getting started. Tell us a little bit about how that happened, those early beginnings.
So So my wife and I ended up in this industry completely by mistake. Accident 18 years ago, was asked to come on as a GM on a 4th of July weekend, which was crazy. My wife was the operations manager, with some ideas of some future that was going to happen. 7 years later, there was sort of some changes going on, and my wife and I decided we needed to make a change. And so the end of 2013, we jumped off a cliff with really nothing. I had an idea I was going to go to work for Point Central, but it wasn't quite finalized yet. 2 weeks later, we sat down with our business partner, Sally. We joked that after the second bottle of wine, we decided to open Beachcomber Vacation Homes. We opened our doors officially on March 1st with one property and one employee. We still have that original property and we still have our second employee with us. Um, and we just started growing from there. Love the industry, love hospitality. It's in an area I grew up in and really wanted to service those guests and people who wanted to enjoy our area.
Hmm. Hmm. And I'm sure when you start by having being part of another company first, it's an interesting way to start in the sense that you get to learn how things are made and done, but you also get to see, what are some things that, if you were running the ship, you might do differently, right? So I'm curious to know, from the vision that you had when you were first starting, was there anything that you were telling yourself, this is how we're going to differentiate ourselves, this is how we're going to be doing things differently than what we've seen so far?
Absolutely. And one of the you alluded to the fact that I my housekeeping staff turnover is almost non-existent, and we actually have a waiting list for housekeepers to come work for us. And the reason of that is that our front of the house and back of the house is all a family. So not one side is better than the other. We treat both of them equally. Um, Barb and Sally and I, we do what we call a Christmas gift. All of our employees get the same amount, whether they've been here for a week or they've been here for 10 years. Just to show everybody that
Mhm.
they're on the same playing field. I don't care if you're out making beds today or you're here taking reservations. You're on the same team. Um, and nobody's treated any different. And so that's been a big part of what we learned and we've seen in the hospitality industry, there's always a difference between the front desk and the housekeepers. And we really didn't want to have that. So, an example of that is I make lunch for them every Friday. I barbecue every Friday, Memorial Day through Labor Day. So then there's an intermix. housekeepers are coming in, grabbing a couple hot dogs, they're on their way out. Front desk is the reservationists are, so they all get to talk. So yeah, that's an important piece to us.
Mm-hmm. What's been the biggest challenge in putting that culture in practice? Because it's good to have this vision of, okay, I'm gonna build something where everyone is equal and everyone's gonna work as a team and get along with each other, and it's all nice and beautiful until you try to make it happen and you see that you're actually dealing with humans. And so what's been the
Right.
challenge there?
So it's putting the right people in the right place and getting the right people hired. I'm not saying we've been perfect. We've had some employees and some management that just wasn't the right fit for us. Um 4 years ago we hired a reservationist who is what became quickly our reservation manager and now is our GM. And that is her philosophy as well. She also has a philosophy as clear as kind. So we're honest and upfront, so people know exactly where they stand. Um, and I really believe it comes from the top down. Barb, Sally, and I have to show that kind of hospitality and respect for our teams. Then it goes down to our reservation manager and our JM and housekeeping, and they're all have bought into that idea. So that's an important. We do a Christmas party, and we even have all the kids come because there's no difference. So it's just taking care of people.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing. And what do you think that the impact has been on this? I mean, of course, there's the fact you mentioned that there's there's a waiting list, for housekeepers wanting to work with you. But just if someone's thinking, yeah, this is all nice and cute, but I want to grow, or I want to focus on revenue, or like, why is this cultural component so central to being able to thrive in this industry, in this business, in any kind of business really? But what's been the impact that you've seen of doing business in such a way?
Well, it does two things. Everybody comes on board with your vision then. So we are a rapidly growing company and people are excited for us to grow because they understand it and and that means we can hire people so nobody, it's not overworked. Um, the other thing it does is in the community, all of your employees are in the community someplace. I have several of my cleaners, housekeeping staff that work at local restaurants. Well, as that word spreads that, gee, Beachcomber takes good care of us, then people in the community also have more respect for you as a company.
Hmm.
So, which helps in a lot of different ways, as you know, with regulations and things like things are going crazy there. If you can show you run a professionally run company and that's the word on the street, it's a huge help in having get things done.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, totally, totally. Now, let's talk about your evolution in terms of where you have spent your time as you have gone throughout the years, and you've added more properties and more team members. Could you give us a timeline at a high level of where your energy has been mostly dedicated towards, as the different stages of the business have come, and as you've been adding more properties and more people as well?
My overall energy has always been spent on owner acquisition, marketing, and technology. Uh, it Some of it's more than other times. It may be like, okay, it's not time to grow the company with more homeowners. Let's see what we've got technology wise. Uh, Marketing has always evolved, and then I've learned one of the big things I learned is while we were young, we couldn't afford to necessarily have people do things for us, but it is financially more important to have a company do your marketing for you if it's not your strong suit or you are getting pulled in three different directions. So really, I work now more with revenue management, with my pricing team, um, and less day-to-day stuff. I'm not in with managing the team as much. I'm more higher level working on the marketing and pricing and revenue management.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
But that takes time.
It does, right? Being able to get to a point where, yeah, you don't necessarily need to be focusing on the operations and the day to day as far as that goes, but you could be selective as to where your time is going to be best spent in terms of giving the best return of your time to the business. Um, what has been sort of the philosophy on your end with regards to, you just alluded to like marketing, if it's not your strength, you just hire a company to do marketing for you. What's been your, but yet on the, on the laundry side of things, with the laundry facility you built, it was more about that control and keeping it in house. So how do you navigate that sort of the dilemma of when it makes sense to keep something in house, when it makes sense to bring on some partners that will, specialize on that? What's been your philosophy around this, and how has that evolved throughout the years?
Well, I want to step back to the beginning a little bit about philosophy of the company and how we were set up. Our actual company name is TLS Incorporated, doing business as Beachcomber Vacation Homes. The TLS stands for three-legged stool. So there's three partners, and we each take kind of this leg. Sally, my partner, she does all the financials. Barb, my wife and partner, does all the operations, and then I do all the other stuff. So when I start looking at who I could hand off to or what I should start looking at, it really is, when does me doing the marketing and those things start to interrupt and disrupt me doing my revenue management? And can I find somebody who can do it better than me for a reasonable price? So it's not, because everybody in this industry wants a slice of the pie. Every time you turn around, a vendor wants a little bit more. But if you can team with somebody you that can do those things for you, it's great. If you can bring them in house, I just think it's really expensive sometimes to bring an additional employee in. For example, we use our pricing software, our revenue management software, and I actually hire a revenue manager through that company rather than my own, because it's less expensive to have Ken do it than me to have somebody sitting in an office here. And I think it's really just that balance where what makes sense. You, I need to get these things done, but if I'm trying to do it, and so that's when you look and go, okay, what are the pros and cons? Which one do I want to take off my plate? Who is the best one to represent that?
And also, just structurally, like you said, with the business partners you started this with, is also recognizing that you are in a situation where you have complementary skill sets, which I think makes
Mm-hmm.
a lot of sense. Like starting a business with a business partner that does the same thing and has the same strengths as you do, you know more challenging, right?
Right.
um, or not having a business partner whatsoever. I mean, some people figure it out and do it, but it definitely adds some complexities to the whole thing. So, technology, revenue management, and homeowner acquisition. Those are the three areas where you spend
Yep.
most of your time. So let's go one by one to talk about each of those. So, in terms of the growth, in terms of the owner acquisition, you've also taken a very unique approach to the way you build those relationships with those realtors and those potential referral partners. Talk to us a little bit about that as well.
So when we started a little over 11 years ago, we weren't growing as quickly as I wanted to. I'm a growth guy. I 20 properties a year is not enough, and we weren't growing as fast. So I sat down with my mom, and who who is just a sweetheart and a wonderful woman, and she said to me, "Well, what can we do?" And I said, "Well, your cookies are." I'd been in auction. My mother's cookies sold for $2,500 for a year, of cookies, and that was a dozen to 2 dozen a month. So I said, "Why don't we do something with your cookies?" And she says, "Well, what if we did the 12 days of cookies? So the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, kind of with a Christmas theme. Here's every other day, here's a new cookie, a dozen and a half." And we delivered those to all the real estate offices. At that point, there were five, plus the chamber. Um, that kept going. And about 3 years into it, we had to change the days. And I got 6 calls that Tuesday of, "Where are you still doing our cookies?" COVID slowed us down a little bit. My mother's now 84, and we've backed off. But in that time that we had done those cookies, she had done almost 15,000 cookies for us. Um, and we are known as the company that does that. But what it also did is it put us at the top of mind of our real estate offices. In our community, real estate offices do not handle short-term rentals. They just do real estate. So I can directly attribute 36 to 40 homes to that program, which it also made us the experts in the community, so when Bill and Sue are looking at buying a house and they're talking to Tammy, who's their realtor, she can call us and say, hey, can you come look at this house for Bill and Sue? Give them an idea of what it'll do. And so that made us the experts in the field in the community. So that worked really well.
Wow. Wow. Because so many people think is just about, the bonus and the referral fee amount and just the mail, like the mailing, the newsletter. Like, we get so caught up in the technicalities of things that we forget that we're dealing with humans, and this is a human business as well. So yeah, so interesting. Is that something that you have heard of? Because I know you also spend a lot of time talking with other property managers in the industry.
I've
Probably
I've never
never
heard anybody do
heard of
that
anything
before.
like that, right?
No. Now there's gifts and things like that that happen, and people will take by, cookies or donuts once in a while, but nobody really have I heard has this 12-day program that we set out, and I hand delivered all of those cookies. So
Wow.
every other day, my day was going to 5 real estate offices and dropping the cookies off because I wanted them to know my face. I wanted them to know who I was.
Hmm.
So it was important that I get.
Were you adding a business card, with the cookies? Were you adding some logo of yours?
Nope.
Anything?
It was just a nice ribbon and a nice package, and it was me delivering it.
Right, right.
And by this halfway through the second year, they knew exactly who was bringing what.
Hmm.
There was no
Hmm.
doubt. So
Got it, got it. And as far as that goes, because this is the type of thing that there's no shortcuts to it, right? There's no way to, just do this once and have the result of, someone like you that did it. 15,000 cookies, you said? 1,500? I
yeah,
mean, a lot of cookies, basically.
15,000 cookies.
15,000. Take a look at that. Wow. So, but I guess my question is, do you think that, because there's always this interesting debate, and I hear this on the side of the guest, I hear this on the side of the owner, with regards to the balance between scalability and hospitality. Scalability and just going the extra mile. So how do you balance the two, right? How do you balance doing things that are unique, that go the extra mile, that will go, that cannot go unnoticed, because that's the type of company you are and that's the type of service you want to provide, with also the fact that, like, it becomes hard to do some of these things at scale, and some people are thinking, scale as well. So how do you try to balance those two extremes?
I think having one of my pet peeves in anything, not just this industry, but in life in general, is phone trees. I hate to get a call somebody and say, press 1 to get to this, 2 to get to that. So first and foremost in our company, if you call us basically 24 hours a day, after hours a little bit different, but during the day, you're going to get a live person that picks up the phone within 3 to 4 rings, and people go, oh, you're really a person. And then they say, where are you? And we say, well, we're actually in Cannon Beach. And so both homeowners and guests like the fact that we have a brick and mortar office. There are live bodies in there that are actually answering the phone. My team is great. And so they feel like that starts the hospitality piece of it. My wife said many years ago that we sit in the middle of a teeter-totter, and on one side is guests and one side's owners, and that neither one shall ever touch the ground. Now, somebody's going to, because we're not perfect as humans. But how quickly can you fix that problem take care of that guest, that homeowner, and get those things level again.
Mm-hmm.
My staff is really good at asking, what are you coming for? Is it a birthday, anniversary? Because of where we are, we have a lot of people, this is their last trip to the Oregon coast. They go out of their way to make sure there's a card or flowers or a bottle of wine or something there that's above and beyond for those special things. But with that, with every guest, we have a nice welcome gift that has some local coffee and some things, and a little card that says, thank you for choosing us. There's a lot of choices. Accept this from us. And that goes a long way for both the homeowners and the guests.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you found it more challenging to continue? Because there's this saying of like, you got to do the unscalable at first, and that's
Mm-hmm.
how you get to a point where you can then start thinking about scalability. But have you found it challenging to continue doing those high touch elements as you've added more and more properties? And do you think there's a way for you to keep, because you're a growth guy too, right? You come from that
Right.
biz dev side, with Point Central and whatnot. Do you think there's a way to maintain that, or do you think there's a volume after which it just becomes too difficult and not sustainable financially to do so?
I think there's a spot where it has to stay sustainable. You have to pick the things you do well and keep them sustainable and whatever it takes, because you built your reputation on those things. So I think what happens with a lot of companies is they go scalable and they start dropping some of those little things. Then their repeat guests go, well, it's not the same company as it was when I first started. The homeowners go, well, it's not the same. I think the biggest change in that and the ability to keep it going is I got out of the way. I made sure that the team I have in place, starting with Sandy at our general manager spot, they understand our philosophy, and I get out of the way and let them and do it. And
Hmm.
I'll walk in on a Friday, and we have a certain group of condos we write a welcome card to every time. And I walk in, and 10 o'clock in the morning, they're writing the welcome cards, handwritten, ready to go. It's just, it, you have to pick and choose, because yes, there's things that aren't scalable, but
Hmm.
things like a little gift, those things are scalable, and you just make them happen.
Hmm. Oh, I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Now, in terms of getting out of the way, I see a lot of you know operators, owners of property management companies struggle with that, struggle with letting go, struggle with getting out of the way, because they've done it themselves and they think that no one else can do it like they can. How have you managed to get out of the way?
I always hire people smarter than me. I never want to be the smartest person in the room.
Hmm.
Um, I joke, we have offices both in Cannon Beach and Seaside. Our Seaside office is where our laundry facility is. About a year and a half ago, I joke I got voted off the island and kicked out of Cannon Beach and moved my office to where I am now in Seaside. Um, but you have to have a trust. Now, with that trust comes, we meet on a weekly basis. We have a team meeting. We talk about what's going on. So I don't feel completely lost. I know what kind of information is going on. Communication is very important. So as long as those things, it's easy to step back for me.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Okay. And is there a way in which you manage that communication towards you, in terms of um, you know there's different management systems, there's different approaches, there's people that do one-on-ones, there's people that really just go based on, like, you have this one KPI to report to me on, and that's all I care about, the North Star metric type way. What's your approach?
We as owners, as the three of us, we meet primarily with Sandy, our general manager, once a week. And that can be an all day meeting. It can start at 10 and go till 4 or 5. But it's to go through all the things and talk about what's happening in reservations, what's happening in housekeeping, and help her grow as a general manager as well. Because I never expect everybody to know everything that the three of us wanted from our vision. And
Hmm.
it's just helping. Um, I measure it by how happy our team is. If I don't have a lot of turnover, guess what? We're doing a good job.
Mm.
So we look at it that a lot. And I pride ourselves, especially in our housekeeping, because we have this waiting list of 2 or 3 housekeepers all the time that want to come work with us, which is pretty much unheard of.
Yeah, pretty
So
much. I think that's the challenge that a lot of people would want to have would be to have a waiting list and having to choose and having to wait and tell them to hold off. Uh, okay, perfect. So that's we talked a little bit about the owner acquisition side. Um, talk, Talking about the owner acquisition side as well. So there's there's the idea of the cookies and doing the unscalable. There's the idea of keeping it human as well. W- of course, if you treat your people well and you take good care of your people, they'll take good care of your owners. So that also will lead to
that also helps. Yep.
referrals, and of course it helps. What else do you think you've done right, especially because of that background in go to market and biz dev that you had from Point Central, in terms of adding new homeowners?
I think picking the right technology. There's companies out there that say we have all the technology because we're the biggest, best. And I think even as a small company, and I still consider us small with over 100 properties, it's picking the correct technology. What what works really well for your guests, number one, as far as communication, reservations, all those pieces. But what makes your team's job easier? You know, what does Point Central do to you for you? What does Breezeway do for you? We use a communications platform that I could tell you that if I got rid of, if I said goodbye to NARS and Rubaru, I'd have my whole team in the front office walk on me because they love it so much, and it makes life easy for them and the guests because that communication is almost instantaneous. So
Mhm.
if there's a problem, or we use it a lot, our communications with guests that keep them happy is, we know there's going to be a power outage tonight. We can tell them that before it happens. Um, so I think technology has been a big piece to make our jobs easier, but
Mhm.
also keep our guests and homeowners happy.
Mhm. Mhm. And in terms of the growth side, again, like with regards to adding owners, like there must be something you do differently that someone that hasn't worked in the industry before doing sales would not think of. Like I feel like in B2B sort of tech SaaS, there's a lot of structure around how to sell, how to market, how to get leads, how to get lists, how to nurture, how to do sequences, all sorts of things, even like role playing. Whereas when you just start a management company, a lot of times you end up in the industry by mistake. You don't have that background that you had, so they just approach it kind of like, they don't have a plan, they don't have an approach, they don't so what is your take on that?
Under promise, over deliver. I got bit one time by over promising some rates. It was a miserable relationship. What I found is if you come into homeowners, you're honest, number one. You tell them what your marketing is, and make sure it's a strong marketing plan.
Hmm.
And then you under promise them, okay, I think I can get you X. This is my factor for you for this year. This is what I think we can do in the first year. This is what I think we can do in the second year. Hopefully, in your own head, you're thinking what I told them I could do in the second year is what I'm going to do in the first. But don't, but it's like under promise, over deliver. And that reputation starts going through your market. So now real estate agents are going, oh, you need to go see Brian and Barb and Sally because they took good care of me. This is what they've done for me.
Hmm.
And I think that's an important piece. And having your team have the confidence to talk to those future homeowners. I get phone calls all the time, and my team can start talking to homeowners potential homeowners right away to make them feel comfortable.
Hmm.
So
Now,
we use all of it to try that.
one of the challenges with this aspect of, because I agree with you, under promise, over deliver, and they're gonna stay, right, because you exceeded their expectations.
Mhm.
Now you have also situations where, especially when you're selling, property management services to homeowners. A lot of times there's the conversation about forecast and what's the revenue forecast and how much do you think this property can generate, and then all of a sudden, if under promise and everyone else is doing the opposite, they're not even going to give you a chance to, you know basically see that you were actually going to over deliver, while at the same time you don't want to go on the other side. You don't want to over promise, because anyone can just say, I'm going to generate this much revenue, and then at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to have the problem when you don't reach that number. So you definitely don't want to over promise. But how do you compete, especially with, as it relates to the numbers piece, when everyone else is just throwing out numbers out there that are really, that don't have any
That
fundamental?
aren't realistic.
Yeah.
Um, Two things. I always tell a potential homeowner to talk to two of my competitors. Go talk to three of us. A lot of times they think that's pretty ballsy, and so they're like, okay, if you're willing to have me do that, I think I'm gonna stick with you. The other joke that I have with my team is being the second property manager for a homeowner is always the easiest way to do it. So I don't mind if they go someplace else the first time, because what they're going to find out is they were overpromised, underdelivered, and they're going to come back and talk to me. And when they come back to me as a second manager, property manager, sometimes it's a lot easier because they've got all these, especially with first time homeowners that are now short terming their houses because they don't really understand it. So all of a sudden, and they didn't know which questions to ask. They didn't know those things. While you try to help them, if you're the second property manager, sometimes that's even better.
Hmm.
So I'm
Hmm.
not out to win everybody.
What do you look for, though? What are some of the red flags that you will identify and say, you know what, this is not an owner we want to work with?
If they're combative in the interview, if they if there's a lot of attitude, and it's tough sometimes to tell that in the first kind of sit down. Sometimes they have to be with you for a week or so or a month or so, and then all of a sudden the true start showing up. Um, I have let homeowners go as soon as after 3 weeks after signing a contract because it just wasn't a good fit. And I
Hmm.
think you have to look at that and say, is it worth your team's mental health and well-being to have an abusive owner or abusive guests or an abusive employee? And getting those things out of the system as quickly as possible. I always tell my homeowners we have a 1-year agreement, but if we don't get along, give me 30 days notice and we'll part ways. I
Hmm.
just I don't believe in holding owners to a contract that if nobody's happy,
Hmm.
because then it's just like a sickness that then spreads throughout the company.
Hmm. Hmm. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Now, we've talked about that owner side. We've talked briefly about the technology piece, having tools that are gonna basically make it so that your team is happy and their work is easier, and that's what you prioritize as well,
Mhm.
both in terms of the tools you decide to bring on, as well as in terms of the KPIs that you want your leadership to be reporting to you on, like, do we have a lot of
Right.
rotation, that kind of thing. What about the revenue management? You say that you are pretty on top of it, right? It's one of the things you keep close to yourself. You also did say you work with a vendor and you use their fractionalized revenue management solution. you know Walk us through, why not, like, why didn't you just hire someone to do this, or why are you not just the one doing it yourself, like, and also, what are some of the things you've learned and you've maybe tweaked throughout the years in terms of your revenue management methodology, which you did say that one of the things you do differently is that when you don't have bookings, instead of decreasing the rate, you'll increase the rate and you'll get it to perform, which I want to get to talk about.
So, so we've been using Beyond pricing for about 6 or 7 years now. And when we took them on at first, we did everything. Um, in 2023, I had open heart surgery. I was going to be out for 12 weeks, and I knew I couldn't do everything when I was out. So that's when we went to the fractional revenue manager with Beyond. He does such a great job, and we actually work as a team. Um, we have weird we have a weird ordinance here that says you can only rent once every 14-day period, which means usually you have a week rented and then you're off a week. Ken, my revenue manager, doesn't understand the calendar as well as I do. I don't understand pricing as well as he does. So he really handles the ups and downs and pricing strategy with our rates, and I manage the calendar strategy, which works really well as a team. He can concentrate on one thing, I can concentrate on the other and do the calendar strategy. And Sally, my business partner, her and I probably spend an hour a week, especially coming into summer. Where can we make adjustments in the calendar? Where are some days that we can squeeze some revenue out of that we may not have been if we didn't adjust the calendar? It's
Mhm.
worked. It's been a really good strategy and worked really well.
Mhm.
So we're
Mhm.
really happy.
And then
Uh,
on the oh, looks like it's cutting off a little bit on my end. On the note of this mindset of, if this is not booking, rather than lowering the rate, let me increase the rate, and then you got it to book. Like, of course, it depends on the seasonality and the current positioning of the listing
Absolutely.
already.
There's lots of it. It's a cute little A-frame that's oceanfront. And I thought, I really don't want to lower the price, but it's not gaining the traction on the OTAs I wanted it to. And so I thought, well, everybody says if you do this with the OTAs, if you do that with the OTAs, it'll change the algorithm a little bit and move you up. Well, what I found is it doesn't matter whether you change wording or pictures, but if you change pricing and availability, it does. So I just had a wild hair one day and said, well, why do we have to lower it? We're talking about July dates in our booking. Let's see if we raise it 5% if it does. Well, it did. And through a certain OTA, I got 3 bookings, which meant what it did is it moved it up in the algorithm. So it may have taken it off the second page to the first page. And
Mhm.
if I can raise the rate rather than lower it, we're all better off.
Mhm. 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 Yeah, and of course
And
this
it worked. It
this
doesn't work
work.
all the time, but lowering the
That's what I
rate
was gonna
doesn't
say.
work all the time
Exactly.
either. So
Exactly. Exactly. And I think it's just about looking at things more holistically, right? It's about understanding that, price is not always the problem, and there's the whole sort of funnel of the guest journey and where you're losing them in that process, and all sorts of things that, it's not always just lowering the rate, which is fundamental, right? To understand that, like, sometimes I ask people, why are you lowering the rate here, and they say, well, that's all I know how to do, right? And I'm like, are you ranking? Are you even appearing on the first page of search results? Like, they're like, I don't know. So yeah, it's good to look at that more holistically as well. Definitely agree with that. um,
well,
Now,
and
Brian, when you speak with all the operators that you speak with, not only because you said that that's one of the things you like to spend time on personally as well in terms of learning, but also, you were, very involved in this association as well, as president of the Northwest Vacation Rental Professionals Association. What do you think are some of the common mistakes you see operators make? If we could kind of like just, I know we started with discussing what's your personal mistake that you would like to maybe have done differently, or the lesson you wish someone had taught you earlier. But when you look at the market as a whole and the operators you speak with as a whole, what do you think, if you could summarize like the main challenges or the main problems you see them face, what do you think they should be looking at differently, or doing differently? in general?
I think one of the things, especially in this market today, with the booking window shortening as much as it is, I think we're still running to discounts too quickly. I actually removed all of my last minute discounts for the summer, um, to hold prices. We'll see if I'm smart or an idiot soon enough. But I think rushing to discount, we start training the consumer that if they wait longer, they're going to get it cheaper. And I think that's a mistake we make as an industry. We set ourselves up for that failure,
Hmm.
that's going to happen. It's one of the reasons I pulled. I think right now we all have to be very careful and watch and not panic. I believe that with the layoffs that are happening in the economy, what people are doing, like yourself, let's say you work for Nike, you go to Nike and you say, okay, I want this week's vacation in August. You don't book, you take that, but you don't book your accommodations to a month out because you don't know if you're gonna have a job or not.
Mm.
And I think we need to not panic. I think just because things that are traditionally booked this month for August aren't booking till the end of the month, just be patient. And I think that's one of the things that's happening, at least in my market. And so I'm watching that. I believe too that operators sometimes hold on to inventory that's not healthy for their inventory, or employees that are not healthy for their team. And I think understanding that you have to cut those faster, just because this house is oceanfront, if the owner is disrespectful to your team and it's a problem, it's not going to rent anyway because it's the last one they're going to talk about. So
Mm.
you might as well cut it loose. And I think those are some of the mistakes that happen, that people hold on to things too long.
Mm. Yeah, very valuable and very relevant. Well, listen, Brian, I could keep you here for 2 more hours and we would have things to talk about. This was very insightful. I really enjoyed it. I hope the audience did as well. Thanks so much for taking the time, Brian.
No problem. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, it was great seeing you in Austin as well.